Ymedia Group, the fastest growing media group in North America.
Hello and welcome back to Ymedia Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh, and big news. If you are a Walmart shopper and don't have an alternative to Walmart, because that's what's become here in Canada, well, if you recall a brand, a Canadian brand that was very popular back in the 90s and the early 2000s is coming back to Canada. And that brand is Zellers. It's going to continue its Canadian comeback, announcing new stores opening across Ontario. This iconic discount retailer, if you remember it, Zellers, with its red brand, has expanded beyond its initial Hudson's Bay location. That's another thing. We lost the Hudson's Bay, and then we got the Zellers comeback, which is going to go into those massive stores, department stores where Hudson Bay used to be. And so now the expansion is part of Zeller's strategy to rebuild its brand presence by targeting value-conscious shoppers looking for affordable household goods, toys, clothing, and everyday essentials. It's really what Zellers was known for. And we've seen statistically now, like with the numbers that are put up by Costco, for example, that they're seeing that there's an uptick in shopping at Costco because it's affordable, it's family friendly. And to that, World Zellers is leaning on that same brand that it had back when it was, in many different department stores near you. And so now it's coming back to compete with the likes of Walmart. So this latest expansion reflects growing consumer demands for discount retail options amid ongoing what we're seeing in affordability pressures and high costs of living. So Zellers is smarter than the chain it appeared to be before as their branding. They were with us until 2013 and then they virtually disappeared. It's just their numbers dropped and all those Zellers locations closed down. Now the company's saying that they've found their way. They've, put together a strategy and they're going to come back with this store within a store concept and at selected standalone locations. So here are the key facts. It has announced new Ontario store openings as a part of its national expansion. It's coming back to Canada overall. And this retailer is going to be, they re-entered the Canadian market back in 2023, but that was after a decade long of absence. They left in 2013 and then they came back in 2023, but not really seen in the GTA. And this is something that now they're going to have more presence of, as most current Zellers locations operate inside a former Hudson's Bay store. And we saw the exodus of Hudson's Bay not too long ago. The company is focusing on value-oriented merchandise and private label products, right? So this is going to give Walmart a run for its money because really, what do you do other than go to Walmart for when it comes to value goods, right? You can't buy everything from Dollarama. And on certain things, maybe Canadian Tire may compete, but what Walmart is able to offer from, a one-stop shop is something that Zellers what used to do, and it's going to come back to do that as well. And so what's the background of Zellers? It was founded in 1931. Once it operated more than 350 stores across Canada. And then if you recall, Target purchased many of Zellers' leases back in 2011. And then most of Zellers' locations closed in 2013. It was just something that didn't seem to work at the time. Then you had Hudson's Bay retained ownership of the Zellers brand, and then Hudson's Bay got into trouble. So after Target's unsuccessful expansion here in Canada and the eventual exit from Canada, many Canadians remained very nostalgic of Zellers, and that actually makes me happy to know that Zellers is coming back. That creates an opportunity for revival for a Canadian brand to come back and as a time of, a sentiment for buying Canadian and supporting Canadian businesses. This is something that needs to be done, whereas Walmart is an American corporation. So the return of Zellers reflects, several trends we're looking at. Affordability is one thing, which it always had a trend on affordability when it comes to lower priced household goods, discount apparel, and value focused shopping experience. And there's the fact of like, the Big Z, if you remember, that was their brand, the Big Z. And so it was a family oriented shopping experience. And if you recall, it was a restaurant inside of Zellers. So not only can you shop, but you can go to the family-friendly restaurant and you could get, the famous Z, item to eat at the restaurant that looked kind of like a diner, but it gave you that entire experience, right? So the direct competition is going to be against Dollarama, Walmart, Giant Tiger, and Canadian Tire. And we saw that. We saw Dollarama, if you've seen, they've expanded their goods. When you walk in, it's no longer just a dollar now. You can buy things for like, I think $5 at Dollarama. But that competes with Walmart on certain things. And then we've seen the Canadian brand Giant Tiger also expand and also have, they're smaller in size compared to what a Zellers or a Walmart is. They'd probably compete more on the size. They're a little bit bigger than a Dollarama. And then they have, almost all the goods, but minus no, they actually have groceries as well. They do have a grocery aisle. It is everything's at a smaller scale compared to what you'd see at Walmart. And I don't think they have furniture though. Yeah, it's just like apparels, it's household goods, and there is a grocery section. And then Canadian Tire, where that differs, is you're not going to get apparel at Canadian Tire, you're not going to get groceries at Canadian Tire. So Canadian Tire is great for, the goods that you need for the home, and whether it's in your tools and your bicycles and really any other tool that you need for home and some household goods. But you're so each one is competing in a different factor. So Zellers is really the biggest competitor to Zellers in terms of Zellers is the biggest competitor to Walmart in terms of giving you all aspects of what you'd buy. It'll be to be seen to see if Zellers is going to have grocery items, right? That'll be very interesting to see what this means. But they're back, and this is a time of we're seeing, some inflation numbers going up, economic uncertainty, slower consumer spending, and when you have household budget pressures, right? It really makes a case for being more conscious on your spending and where you're purchasing things from. And what better than to support Canadian? And when it comes to the World Cup, do you believe it? It's around the corner as Toronto gets ready and the other cities that are hosting the World Cup games. This is a massive announcement because Canada won the bid and has been preparing. And so we had our colleagues there in the stadium taking actual shots for you. There you go. That's Ymedia. You can go full screen so you can see the size of the stadium for the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup. With it's going to be the largest in history, featuring 48 teams and 104 matches across Canada. United States and Mexico. Canada alone will host 13 matches in Toronto and Vancouver. What you're seeing is the location of the matches in Toronto. Ymedia was there just recently, and this is the image from there. And that's what you'll expect when you purchase tickets to games in Toronto. 13 matches will be held in Toronto and Vancouver. And Canada has been drawn into what is the Group B alongside Bosnia and Qatar and Switzerland when it comes to hosting these games. And so you could see the size of this stadium. The Canada's opening match is scheduled for June 12th in Toronto against Bosnia and Herzegovina. The tournament runs from June 11th to July 19th of this year, and this is something that Canadians are highly looking forward to in terms of, the games here. It's supposed to be able to draw big crowds, not just in Canada, but from our neighboring countries, and it's supposed to contribute definitely to the economy when it comes to retailers, restaurants, accommodations. So this is, drawing a big tourism in Toronto and Vancouver. So we look forward to that. And of course, we're going to cover all these games for you. We're going to be, giving you the play-by-play of these matches. But what's interesting is we now have heard from businesses that are also looking forward to, having their sales increase. And to that, this story is quite interesting, is a cannabis retailer in Toronto and Vancouver, they're expecting a significant sales boost from the FIFA World Cup as they're saying that hundreds of thousands of visitors will arrive for the tournament. And these shops are near the stadiums and fan zones. And so what they're doing is they're stocking up on their inventory and stocking up on novelty, products, beverages, vapes, and premium cannabis products in anticipation of an increased tourism spending is what they're looking forward to. And so, Ontario cannabis officials are estimating that some of the stores near some major World Cup venues could see sales rise up as much as 10% during the tournaments. So that's very significant. As Canada, it's legalized in Canada, so possibly some visitors that are coming to Canada and it's not legalized in their country, they will have access to all these things, right? So you retailers believe that this international visitors, soccer fans, and tourists will be exploring, the city, and this will be a major economic opportunity for the legal cannabis industry. And that's just one aspect. And what's interesting is because usually you look at, retailers from, the malls and restaurants and, hotels, those types of accommodations. And rarely do you really hear about the cannabis industry and them stocking up for what they believe the visitors would be into. Toronto is expected to welcome more than 300,000 visitors during the tournament. So this is massive. And so some retailers are introducing soccer themed products, novelty items aimed at tourists who will be here. And this is, just a significant thing for when a city decides to host such massive games and bring highlights to their city because it's going to have an international audience. This is part of what comes with it. So now the tournament, the World Cup tournaments, the dates are from June 11th to July 19th. And the host cities are Canada, US, and Mexico. So it's very significant. And the expected increase in downtown Toronto traffic during that time is going to be, on average, they're projecting about 10 to 15% on major roads. So these are things to be mindful of as you travel to downtown during this time. And, with transportation services and tourism operations. Now, Toronto has budgeted approximately $380 million for the World Cup hosting activities, with FIFA previously estimating up to $940 million in economic output for the Greater Toronto Area. So now some of the challenges could be, retailers are very optimistic about this, but of course there are very high tickets. The prices are very high that could discourage some fans. So it will be interesting to see, what is the total number that'll show up. We're going to know that from hotel bookings. We're going to know that from, what we see in the numbers and the uptick of what the retailers are saying, during that time, and take a look at that. But yeah, it's very interesting. That is what you see. Ymedia was live there, and you're getting a chance to see the stadium. So it's very exciting times here in Canada and what to look forward to just around the corner. Now, another big thing happened in one of the biggest cities, New York City. You had pop icon Madonna. She stunned fans with a surprise performance in New York City's Times Square. If you've ever been to Times Square, it's a very busy area in New York City. And then there was a surprise concert by pop legend Madonna. And she did this to kick off the Pride Month and promote her upcoming album, Confessions 2. She's 67 years old, and yet you have her, with enthusiasm performing. People who've been to her concert are just wowed at her energy and, of course, her hits from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. And here she is promoting her new album, Confessions 2. And so this was said that it was, high energy set in pink corset. There you in pink corset, inspired outfit, drawing thousands of fans and shutting down parts of New York City. If you can imagine, it's one of the busiest public spaces when you have Times Square, and it got shut down because Madonna was performing her hit classics that include Hang Up and I Love New York, alongside the previews of her new music from Confessions 2. There you see the audience just like losing their mind because it was a surprise concert that was held, and you had dancers and DJs and rotating stage and visuals celebrating Pride Month for LGBTQ plus icons. So this is very significant. The concert lasted about 15 to 30 minutes. And so this was a big show and a massive surprise. Madonna, still on the top of her game, 67 years old, and many people grew up with Madonna from her music from the 80s onwards. And so her big surprise concert was massive to kick off, Pride Month. And I think she's got a massive following in that community as well. So that's all the time we have in terms of covering Ymedia Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh. Until next time, take care and be well.